Chapter 9 of Fighting the Whales. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Fighting the Whales by R. M. Ballantyne. Chapter 9. News from Home. A Gam. The death of poor Fred Borders cast a gloom over the ship for many days. Everyone had respected, and many of us had loved the lad, so that we mourned for him long and truly. But a sailor's life is such a rough one, requiring so much energy and hearty goodwill to his work, that he cannot afford to allow the sorrows of his heart to sit long on his countenance. In a day or two after, no one would have supposed we had lost one of our best men. Whales appeared in great numbers around us. The old cry of "There she blows!" ran out frequently from the masthead, and the answering cry from the captain, "Where away?" was followed by the "Stand by to lower! Lower away!" Then came the chase with all its dangers and excitement, the driving of the harpoon, the sudden rush of the struck fish, the smoke and sparks of fire from the loggerhead, the plunging of the lance, the spouting blood, the flurry at the end, and the wild cheer as we beheld our prize floating calmly on the sea. And in the midst of such work we forgot for a time the solemn scene we had so recently witnessed. But our hearts were not so light as before, and although we did not show it, I know full well that many a joke was checked, and many a laugh repressed, for the memory of our dead shipmate. The man who was most affected by his death was the captain, but we were not prepared for the great change that soon appeared in his manner and conduct. After a time he laughed with the rest of us at a good joke, and cheered as loud as the best when a big fish turned belly up, but his behaviour to us became more gentle and kind, and he entirely gave up the habit of swearing. He also forbade working on Sunday. Many a whale have I seen sporting and spouting near us on that day, but never did we lower a boat or touch a harpoon on Sunday. Some of the men grumbled at this and complained of it to each other, but they never spoke so as to let the captain hear, and they soon gave up their grumbling, for the most of us were well pleased with the change, and all of us had agreed to it. The first Sunday after Fred's death the captain assembled the crew on the quarter-deck and spoke to us about it. "My lads," said he, "I've called you aft to make a proposal that may perhaps surprise some of you. Up to this time you know very well there has been little difference aboard this ship between Saturday and Sunday. Since our poor shipmate died I have been thinking much on this matter, and I've come to the conclusion that we shall rest from all work on Sunday, except such as must be done to work the ship. Now, lads, you know me well enough by this time. I have never been a religious man all my life, and I don't pretend to say that I'm one now. I'm not very learned on this matter, and can't explain myself very well. But what think you, lads? Shall we give the whales a rest on Sundays?" We all agreed to this at once, for the effect of the captain's speech was great upon us. It was not so much what he said as the way in which he said it. He was by nature a bold, determined man, who never flinched from danger or duty, and when we heard him talking in that way we could scarcely believe our ears. This was all that was said about the matter between us and the captain, but we had many a hot discussion in the forecastle amongst ourselves after that. Some were in favour of the new move, and said stoutly that the captain was a sensible fellow. Others said he was becoming an old wife, and that no luck would follow the ship. In the course of time, however, we found the benefit of the change in every way, and the grumblers were silenced, because in spite of their wise shakings of the head, we filled the ship with oil as full as she could hold, much sooner than we had expected. Shore-going people have but little notion of the ease with which the heart of a jack-tar is made to rejoice when he is out on a long voyage. His pleasures and amusements are so few that he is thankful to make the most of whatever is thrown in his way. In the whale fisheries, no doubt, he has more than enough of excitement, but after a time he gets used to this, and begins to long for a little variety, and of all the pleasures that fall to his lot, that which delights him most is to have a gam with another ship. Now, a gam is the meeting of two or more whale ships, their keeping company for a time, and the exchanging of visits by the crews. It is neither more nor less than a jollification on the sea, the inviting of your friends to feast and make merry in your floating house. There is this difference, however, between a gam at sea and a party on land, that your friends on the ocean are men whom you perhaps never saw before, and whom you will likely never meet again. There is also another difference. there are no ladies at a gam. This is a great want, for man is but a rugged creature when away from the refining influence of woman, but in the circumstances, of course, it can't be helped. We had a gam one day on this voyage with a Yankee whale ship, and a first-rate gam it was, for as the Yankee had gammed 3 days before with another English ship, we got a lot of news second-hand, and as we had not seen a new face for many months, we felt toward those Yankees like brothers, and swallowed all they had to tell us like men starving for news. It was on a fine calm morning, just after breakfast, that we fell in with this ship. We had seen no whales for a day or two, but we did not mind that, for our hold was almost full of oil barrels. Tom Lokins and I were leaning over the starboard bulwarks, watching the small fish that every now and then darted through the clear blue water like arrows, and smoking our pipes in silence. Tom looked uncommonly grave, and I knew that he was having some deep and knowing thoughts of his own, which would leak out in time. All at once he took his pipe from his mouth and stared earnestly at the horizon. "Bob," said he, speaking very slowly, "if there ain't a ship right off the starboard beam, I'm a Dutchman." "You don't mean it!" said I, starting with a feeling of excitement. Before another word could be uttered, the cry of "Sail ho!" came ringing down from the masthead. Instantly the quiet of the morning was broken. Sleepers sprang up and rubbed their eyes. The men below rushed wildly up the hatchway. The cook came tearing out of his own private den, flourishing a soup ladle in one hand and his tormentors in the other. The steward came tumbling up with a lump of dough in his fist that he had forgot to throw down in his haste, and the captain bolted up from the cabin without his hat. "Where away?" cried he with more than his usual energy. "Right off the starboard beam, sir." "Square the yards! Look alive, my hearties!" was the next order, for although the calm sea was like a sheet of glass, a light air, just sufficient to fill our topgallant sails, enabled us to creep through the water. "Hurrah!" shouted the men as we sprang to obey. "What does she look like?" roared the captain. "A big ship, sir, I think," replied the lookout, "but I can only just make out the top of her main topgallant sail." Sailors scorned to speak of topgallant sails. Gradually, one by one, the white sails of the stranger rose up like cloudlets out of the sea, and our hearts beat high with hope and expectation as we beheld the towering canvas of a full-rigged ship rise slowly into view. "Show our colours!" said the captain. In a moment the Union Jack of old England was waving at the masthead in the gentle breeze, and we watched anxiously for a reply. The stranger was polite. His colours flew up a moment after and displayed the stripes and stars of America. "A Yankee!" exclaimed some of the men in a tone of slight disappointment. I may remark that our disappointment arose simply from the fact that there was no chance, as we supposed, of getting news from home out of a ship that must have sailed last from America. For the rest, we cared not whether they were Yankees or Britons. They were men who could speak the English tongue. That was enough for us. "Never mind, boys," cried one. "We'll have a jolly gam, that's a fact." "So we will," said another, "and I'll get news of my mad Irish cousin, Terence O'Flanagan, who went out to seek his fortin in Ameriky with 2 shillin's and a broken knife in his pocket, and it's been said he's got into a government situation of some sort, connected with the jails, whether as captain or lieutenant of police or turnkey I'm not rightly sure." "More likely as a lieutenant of one of the cells," observed Bill Blunt, laughing. "Don't speak ill of a better man than yourself behind his back," retorted the owner of the Irish cousin. "Stand by to lower the jolly boat," cried the captain. "Aye, aye, sir." "Lower away." In a few minutes we were leaping over the calm sea in the direction of the strange ship, for the breeze had died down, and we were too eager to meet with new faces and to hear the sound of new voices to wait for the wind. To our joy we found that the Yankee had had a gam, as I have already said, with an English ship a few days before, so we returned to our vessel loaded with old newspapers from England, having invited the captain and crew of the Yankee to come aboard of us and spend the day. While preparation was being made for the reception of our friends, we got hold of 2 of the old newspapers, and Tom Lokins seized one, while Bill Blunt got the other, and both men sat down on the windlass to retell the news to a crowd of eager men, who tried hard to listen to both at once, and so could make nothing out of either. "Hold hard, Tom Lokins," cried one. "What's that you say about the Emperor, Bill?" "The Emperor of Russia," said Bill.